Namaste, I'm Mike Rosenkrantz, and welcome to Inspirations. Today we'll be interviewing Scott Failla, who is the director of Oxfam. 1 person in 3 in the world lives in poverty. That's more than 2 billion people. Oxfam is determined to change that world by mobilizing the power of people against poverty. Around the globe, Oxfam works to find practical, innovative ways for people to lift themselves out of poverty and thrive. The organization saves lives and helps rebuild livelihoods when crises strike. Oxfam campaigns so that the voices of the poor influence the local and global decisions that affect them. In Nepal, Oxfam works in disaster preparedness. In case there's an earthquake, the government and all of us will be prepared. Oxfam also works with migrants that are going into India, a very large population that many do not work with. Oxfam also works with farmers in order to get their products into new markets. Oxfam works directly with communities and seeks to influence the powerful to ensure that poor people can improve their lives and livelihoods and have a say in decisions that affect them directly. Oxfam works with partner organizations and alongside vulnerable women and men to end the injustices that cause poverty. On today's show, we will be interviewing Scott, but we'll also take a look at some of the beneficiaries of Oxfam, those living in the far west and other areas. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Mike.
Good to see you. Let's start off our interview today by you telling the audience a little bit about your background and just how you came to come to Nepal.
Well, I've been working in development since 1973, and that's what brought me to Nepal, that work of mine in development. But I've worked in a wide range of countries in Africa and Asia and in the Caribbean. And I've worked in countries that are, actually you can see a lot of progress and they're doing well, examples like Malaysia and Indonesia. And I've worked in countries that have not done so well, such as Somalia, Sudan, Haiti.
Okay. And how long have you worked with Oxfam?
I've been working with Oxfam since 2010, and that's all been in Nepal here.
Okay. Tell us a bit about Oxfam. I mean, many people know about Oxfam. It's an international NGO. But what specifically are you trying to do in Nepal?
Okay, well, Oxfam is very active both in the development and the humanitarian sectors. And it tries to somehow integrate those two types of work that NGOs are generally involved in. And it brings in a third element of, you could say, policy influencing in trying to influence the institutional and legal frameworks in which development occurs. And we try to bring our experience working with communities and in actual development projects to that part of advocacy and trying to influence and improve the knowledge base and the information available. So we do a lot of research and analysis as well, and we like to share that as widely as we can within the development community and with the governments that we work with.
So you're partnering with ministries in the government of Nepal, or how does that kind of work? How does the influencing work?
Well, we are here to support the government efforts in development, and the government pays a lot of attention and puts a lot of resources into development. So we do work very closely with ministries at the Kathmandu level, at the national level. We also work quite closely with government officials at the district level and the VDC level. But two of the ones that we work with most prominently here in Nepal are the Ministry of Federal Affairs and Local Development and the Ministry of Home Affairs. Home Affairs has responsibility for emergency response. So we're doing a lot of work in earthquake preparedness and disaster risk reduction and preparedness. And of course, Federal Affairs and Local Development Ministry is largely responsible for development efforts out in the entire country. So we work closely with them.
So in terms of earthquake preparedness, disaster response, are you working with citizens then, or is it more working with the government to help people become more prepared?
Well, it's a blend of both, right? And both stakeholders are important for that kind of effort. So just to give a few examples, in Kathmandu, which everyone realizes is extremely vulnerable to a major earthquake, we're working with the Ministry of Home Affairs. They've done a good job. They did some research and collected information and identified 83 open spaces that will almost certainly become IDP camps for people whose houses have collapsed. Now, one of Oxfam's strong areas of expertise within the emergency response sector is water and sanitation. So at the moment, Home Affairs has actually legally gazetted 83 open spaces that have to be used for that. And no one could develop those areas without getting their approval and permission to do anything there in terms of construction and development of those open areas. So what we're doing is we're working in the two largest open areas. That's around Tribhuvan University and around NARC, the Nepal Agricultural Research Council. It's on the road to Godavari. And we're putting in earthquake-resistant water facilities that will provide water for a minimum of 100,000 people in the event of a major earthquake. So we're coordinating very closely with the government in doing that. And that means not only Home Affairs, it means Kirtipur Municipality, it means Lalitpur Municipality, it means those government institutions of Tribhuvan University and the Research Council. But I think a key element to highlight here is that we're not just doing that hardware and that physical facilities to deliver water, but we're coupling that with planning and management plans that involve the local stakeholders and communities surrounding those areas. Because they will be the occupants of the open space if there's an earthquake. They will be the users of the water. So we do a lot of preparedness work with those communities as well, and we link the two things, working with them and working with the government. And we feel that having both elements there is essential to having a robust program that's going to function well when there is a disaster.
So beside work in Kathmandu around earthquake preparedness and such, how many districts is Oxfam working in, and what are some of your program areas in the districts?
Well, our development work is largely centered in the far west and the Midwest. So districts like Darchula, Baitadi, Tanaldura, Kailali, Kanchanpur, Dailek, Surkhet, and Banke. So those are the main districts we're working out there. One of the main reasons we're working there is that those are the geographic areas that are, say, less developed and have a larger proportion of people who are in poverty and vulnerable and people who are food insecure.
अब पहिला त तल खोलाबाट बोकेर खाइन्थ्यो पानी नि नौलाको पानी पुग्दैन थियो यहाँको 1-1 लिटर बाँडेर खान्थ्यौं हामीले अगाडि अहिले टंकी बनाएदेखि त मल त पानी त खोलाबाट नि बोकेको छैन म यसरी एक घर परिवारलाई राम्रैसित चलाउने नि त्यही पानीले त राम्रैसँग पुगिहाल्छ अब पहिला त्यो तल पानी ल्याउन जाँदाखेरि कति जानलाई 2 घण्टा लाग्ने अनि आउनलाई 2 घण्टा लाग्थ्यो ट्याक्कै अनि आउने बेला अब त्यो बोकेको पानी नि कहाँ पुग्दैन थियो अनि त्यही पनि पुरै अलिअलि थोरै गरेर खानुपर्ने अवस्था हुन्थ्यो त्यतिबेला
अक्सफामले हात हालिसकेपछि तपाईको अब थोरै भए पनि समय बचत हुन्छ अक्कासे घ्याम्पहरू निर्माण गरिएका छन् र अनि उन्नत जातका बिउहरू पनि यहाँ हामीलाई अक्सफामकै सहयोगमा बिउ बैंकहरू निर्माण गरिए उन्नत जातका बिउहरू दिए अनि त्यसपछि गएर हामीहरू उन्नत जातको हिजोको परम्परागत कृषि भन्दा पनि अलिकता उन्नत बिउ हालिसकेपछि आधुनिक किसिमले गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने सोच रह्यो
मकै गहुँ लगाएपछि अब ससुरा अनि लोग्ने इन्डिया जाने त्यहाँबाट फेरि इन्डियाको अब घरमा अब मकै गहुँ मात्र हुने फेरि अब वहाँ उताबाट ल्याएको पैसाले फेरि अब चामल खाने ठिक्कै हुन्थ्यो आज भोलि त तरकारी खेती गरेदेखि तरकारी लगाएदेखि अब हामीलाई खाने लाने अनि पहिलाको जस्तो छैन हामीलाई समस्या
4 वर्षसम्म म विदेश बसेर आए आफ्नो घर गाउँहरू देख्दाखेरि मलाई धेरै रमाइलोहरू लागेको संस्थाहरू धेरै आएका रहेछन् एउटा आइमा केटाकेटीलाई छोडेर गए मान्छे उनीहरू पनि पालिन सक्ने ठाउँहरू रहेछ हजुरहरूले गरेको कारणले गर्दाखेरि धेरै मान्छेहरूलाई सुविधा भए रहेछ त्यो भएर अहिले म उहाँबाट आउँदाखेरि जाने प्लानले आया मान्छे पनि यहीँ रोकिन सके किनकि तपाईहरु सबैले सहयोग गर्दाखेरि हामीले पनि केही आधार रहेछ हामी पनि गर्न सक्ने रहेछौं नेपालमा पनि रहेछ रोजगार भन्ने कुरा हामीले बुझ्यौं
Are there actually Oxfam employees out in those areas, or do you work with local NGOs? You mentioned VDCs. How exactly, what's your mode of kind of operation?
Well, our primary mode of operation is to work with and support local NGOs. So we have about 30 local NGO partners in the country. They're all registered with Social Welfare Council and the government. They're all registered at the district level with the DDC, and so they're legal entities, and they have an important role in development efforts, and particularly in working with communities. So that's our primary methodology. Out in the far west, we have maybe 8 or 10 actual Oxfam employees who work with the partners and work with the local officials. And one reason that we have those people there is that we have a strong commitment to capacity building of the local institutions, whether it's a government institution or a civil society institution like a local NGO. So our people that have technical expertise can work with both sides and try and strengthen them in their efforts for development.
Mm-hmm. And who are some of those partners, and what kind of work are they involved with?
Well, those partners, just to name a few of the local NGOs, we work with a group called FAYA in Kanchanpur. We work with a group called IDS in Dandaldura, a group called RUDES in Vaitadi, a group called Sankolpa in Darchula. We have several partners in Surkhet. EDS is one, WAM is one. We have several in Surkhet, Sudek, and WEEF are their names.
Yeah.
I know, those are all kind of shorthand, and
yeah.
I couldn't tell you what the letters stand for myself. But basically, they're organizations that have a commitment to help the government implement local development activities and plans. We provide, as I mentioned, some kind of institutional support and capacity building to them. And we provide funding so that they can implement programs and work with local communities. So the local community part is very important, but basically, by and large, the local NGOs are our interlocutor or interface with the local communities. Now, we go through normal kind of planning processes, just like the National Planning Commission would, that are linked to the district development planning process. And we allocate budgets and sign agreements with our partners saying, okay, these are the activities that we jointly agree to implement together, and these are the agreed upon budgets and resources. And we try to incorporate resources not just from the Oxfam side, but we expect communities to make some kind of contribution, even if it's nominal, and the local government as well. And it's a system that works. You can see a lot of good things happening out there.
अनि पर्न सकिनौँ पनि हामीले काम गर्न बिउ उत्पादन गर्न तरकारी गर्न कुनै हामीले कुखुरा पाल्ने कुनै हामीले भैँसी पालेर दुध बेचेर पनि पैसा कमाउने गर्न सिक्नु पर्ने रहेछ गरेपछि हुने रहेछ भन्ने अलिअलि जानकारी आइरहेको छ
अब चर्पीको कुनै वास्ता थिएन हामीले घर घर चर्पी गराउन सिकेका छौं र हामीले बच्चा बच्चीलाई हेरचाह गर्न जानेका थिएनौं बच्चा बच्चीलाई स्याहार सुसार गर्न जानेका थिएनौं र स्कुल पठाउने स्याहार सुसार गर्ने ताजा खानेकुराहरू दिने र बच्चा स्वास्थ्य राख्न सिकेका छौं र बाटोघाटोमा हाम्रो गाडी मोटरहरू आउँदैन थियो गाडी मोटरहरू हामी सर्वदान गरेर हामी महिलाहरूले लिएका छौं
बोल्न नसक्ने अनि यही पिएलसी आएदेखि अनि सहकारीमा गरेदेखि मैले आउँदो वर्ष बर्खामा सिमी लगाए 120 किलोसम्म फलाएर अनि 20,000 सम्म आम्दानी भयो अनि अहिले 3-4 रोपनी मुला लाउँदै छु अनि केही सहकारीमा बचतहरू गर्ने अनि केही आफूलाई मोलहरू अनि यताउति हुन्छ भन्ने
आम्दानीको बाटो भनेको केही पनि थिएन हाम्रो पहिला समुदायमा पवित्र सहकारी आउनुभन्दा पहिला हामीले धान गहुँ मकै लगाएर मात्रै आम्दानी आम्दानीकै खाने 3 महिना पनि पुग्न मुस्किल पर्थ्यो भने अहिले बिउ खेती लगाउँदा त्यही बिउ खेतीले नै खाना पुगेर बालबच्चाहरू पढाउन र आफूलाई घर खर्च टार्न सजिलो भइरहेछ पुरुषहरूको हात थाप्नु परिरहेन
नेतृत्व लिन सक्ने क्षमताको विकास छ गाउँ-गाउँमा महिलाहरूका नै समूहहरू बनिसकेका छन् यसै मार्फत अनि त्यो कृषि उपजहरू उब्जाउने काम मात्र महिलाहरूले गर्थे भनेपछि अहिले बजार व्यवस्थापनसम्म पुर्याएर बिक्री गर्ने अनि त्यो आएको पैसाले आफ्नो घर परिवार चलाउनेसम्म पनि महिलाहरू भइसकेका छन्
पुरुष अलि जुवा तास खेल्छन् पसलमा बसेर र त्यो बन्द गर्छौँ भन्ने हामीले निर्णय गरेका थियौँ उही पछि हामीले महिलाको छुवाछुतको बारेमा छुवाछुत भएले पल्ली हम गोठमै बसन्थे उनलाई लाग्दाइन्थे गाईको दुध दिनाइन्थे अब हाम्रो गाई बिगडन्छ उठबाट मिन्स भाइ आ बेला फोहोर ठाउँमा सुचेलले फोहोर कीटाणु हुनान् रे सफा ठाउँमा सिन पढन्छ भन्ने बारे सिके हामीले तै पछास बाटोघाटो सफा गर्ने बारे सिके रे बाटोघाटो साफ बनाए हामीले गौनको पानी फोहोर होबर यहीँ जान्थ्यो त्यही बाटोलाई साफ बनाए
अक्समले एउटा प्रोजेक्ट मात्र होइन र संस्थालाई एउटा समुदायमा एउटा गाविसमा या जुनसुकै उमा पनि एउटा कार्यक्रमसँग सबै कार्यक्रमहरू लिङ्केज गरेर कोअर्डिनेसन गरेर हैन इन्टिग्रेसन रूपमा चाहिँ कार्यक्रम सञ्चालन गरेको छ
Can you give us some positive examples of things that you've been involved with, either here, either in Nepal or in other countries, where, I mean, you talked about a village, but where the impact of the NGO or INGO has made a really substantial difference and has helped bring people maybe into the mainstream or, you know, given them access to health, education, livelihood?
Okay, I'll give you one example, I guess, at the national level, and then one example kind of at the community level. Okay, the example at the national level is regarding disaster risk reduction and preparedness for disasters. Even as recent as 3 or 4 years ago, there was a limited awareness about that and very limited resources directed towards addressing that problem and that issue. And the earthquake preparedness of Kathmandu is a very clear example of that. But in the last, say, 4 to 5 years, I've seen the level of awareness and understanding that, yes, we have a very important problem here and something should be done to address it, has increased tremendously. Yeah. And you see that reflected in government actions. So, you know, previously disasters were reviewed just as the province of the Home Ministry, and it was more in the context of, well, if something happens, we'll respond. Right? Now there's a whole different way of thinking. The government here is signed on to the Hyogo framework, which is an international agreement to provide a framework for addressing disaster preparedness issues on a global basis, but in each individual country, of course. So the government made that commitment and signed on to an international agreement, and they're taking steps to kind of follow that framework and make improvements. Now there is a completely different situation in terms of the thinking. It's not just home affairs, it's not just responding. So one of the steps the government took about 3 years ago is they appointed a disaster risk reduction focal point in every ministry. So there's 26 of them in all, 26 ministries. And the Ministry of Local Development, or now MOFALD, Federal Affairs and Local Development, has created a unit that didn't exist before, and it has a fair number of personnel in there, probably 10 or 12, and they're working and focusing specifically on disaster risk reduction, and they're trying to incorporate it into the normal development planning process. And this is really going to help a lot in addressing disasters. So that's at the national level, the policy thinking, the steps taken to create a conducive environment and framework for working on the issue and addressing the problem is a tremendous achievement and progress that's been made here. And NGOs have played a role, donors have played a role, but the primary role is with the governments. we can't appoint 26 focal points in the ministries to deal
Right.
with this aspect. The government has to do that, and they did it. And they designated the open spaces. And they created guidelines that are being used by the Ministry of Local Development in the local development planning process in all 75 districts in the country. All right, so those are all very significant and major steps. Various actors have played a role. Oxfam supported the development of those guidelines. Oxfam supported other elements of that effort. But it was a joint effort, and you had the donors, you had the UN, you had the INGOs, you had the local NGOs, you had the government. So that's one example of, let's say, very meaningful progress in a specific area.
Yes.
Another area I'll mention is, I said I'll give you an example of the community level. In my 40 years working in development, one of the most satisfying things I've been involved with is Oxfam's work with women here at the local level and at the community level. And Oxfam is working at the moment with about, let's say, 500-600 women's groups. And I worked here, I first came to Nepal in 1991 and worked in development with another development organization. And if I look at the situation then with regards to these women, I see incredible changes, and those changes are generally positive because the women are much more active, they're much more confident, they're much more aware of things, and they're undertaking a lot of activities that are beneficial for not so much them as individuals, but their families and their communities. And this is what's going to bring development progress in Nepal in the future. And women could be a real engine of this.
Yes.
And the programs that Oxfam have had to just kind of give a little framework for these women to meet together, to learn about issues, and to develop the confidence and the knowledge to start addressing the problems that they face is a really wonderful thing. And I've seen many cases where individual women have just been transformed in going through this process. And in transforming themselves, they're also transforming their communities. So I found this myself to be a very inspiring thing. And I'm just really privileged to, have been a part of kind of facilitating it and helping it happen, both as an individual and as a staff member of an organization like Oxfam, which has a real commitment to women in development.
Fantastic. And finally, what is a message that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Nepal has had an election in November, and overall, the results of that election were a positive thing. Okay, Nepal doesn't have a lot of experience with elections,
right?
And it seems to have learned from its previous experience. Everybody's learned. The Election Commission learned, the government learned, the political parties learned something, the people, the voters learned something. So the election in 2013 was better than previous elections. There was a freer environment for people to discuss issues. There was less violence and intimidation. There was a result that some people might have considered a little bit surprising, but it's what the voters expressed. So that's a real positive thing. Now, but the big question is, okay, it was just an election. So what's next? And the election has kind of created an opportunity for Nepal as a country and for the people of Nepal. And will Nepal utilize that opportunity to make some really helpful and needed improvements in the country's condition and people's lives and so on? So it's up to both civil society and the political parties here to try and use this in the best way, to carry it forward. So I think big questions are, can you use this momentum from the November election to start bringing it down to the local level, have local level elections?
Yes.
Okay. Can you use this to start doing some institution building? Because in Nepal, you had a conflict, and that definitely created a lot of problems, and one of those problems is it damaged institutions, particularly out there at the rural level. Yeah. And it's going to be a big task to rebuild these institutions. If those institutions are rebuilt, then they can start addressing the many different problems that are here in the country that really do need addressing. You know, so it's not a matter of just saying, well, let's work on this problem, whether it's water or health or road building or infrastructure. No, you've got to have the right institutional environments. Yeah. And if you build strong institutions, then they will automatically be able to address all those problems that are there. Right. So my recommendation would be to take advantage of this really significant opportunity that the country has now, and to focus on institution building and carrying forward the momentum from the November elections, and then all those different problems in various areas can be more effectively addressed.
Very good. Thank you, Scott. Pleasure.
You're welcome.